and it's Mookie. All right, welcome back to another episode of The Maturity Project. For those of you tuning in and wondering why I seem to be so faded out, lighting issue, blah, blah, blah. Reason for that is because I'm in my mobile studio, since I do have a decent little commute, and I'll give you a little insight on a few things as we go through this. But I'm your host, Chad Everett Broshears, or Sir Chad Everett Broshears to some. If you know, you know, and there's an Easter egg planted in one of the episodes about why. Now, and this is The Maturity Project. It's a video and a series this is a series and a channel dedicated to growth and development and perspectives and how they can be shifted around and giving more freedom and access to freedom. The things that you know will create the opportunities for what you will have available tomorrow and set you free today. So, all right, let's get to this. Okay, so first off, what has become apparent. So I like to just speak about what I see. That's very consistent at the moment. And what I see also that's kind of running the show for people. A lot of us are convinced that you have absolute free autonomy, free will, and all of that, not realizing that we actually are guided by our decisions in the past, what our social pressures are, what kind of commitments that we have found ourselves in, and or that we have created, and we have inherited some of those commitments. There's a lot of things. It's pretty interesting when you really take in the bigger picture of exactly what's going on with life. Well, let's say exactly what's going on with life. I'm not arrogant enough to actually say that that truly is like I know what it is. I don't at all. Actually, if anything, I just understand that there are different things going on, and then there's a lot of ignorance that I have to give me the depth of awareness that I really know little to nothing. But for what I do have is I'm capable of changing my perspectives, dealing with each unique situation that I go through. And as I play a bigger and bigger game with my life on a regular basis, meaning that pursuing different goals and then the efforts that it takes in order to actually be in that pursuit could be considered a game. Because there's a winning and losing process to it, but there's never the full defeat. I don't live in that world of getting fully defeated. No, just keep working on it, keep growing. So, what has become really apparent to me lately is the decisions we make that give people a viewpoint of who we are as an individual and why we make those decisions. So the agreements that we make. A simple example is, let's say you're in a conversation with somebody and they have a particular idea that they want you to accept. And they're verifying by saying it in front of you out loud in the context of the conversation that supports their view. And they say something that you know that you just don't fully agree with. But let's say you've got 80 or 90% agreement, and there's only, it's a small amount. It's a very small margin that you actually don't necessarily agree with, but it's close enough. So instead of taking the time to articulate that 10% disagreement or 20% disagreement, depending on where you are in those, you just say, okay, and you give them the encouragement that you agree. At what point in time does that 10 to 20% become a problem? Now, there are definitely situations that it may not ever become a problem. At least not that you could truly be aware of in the direct sense. But the fact that you gave up something about yourself is where the challenge is. Now, that's true on all instances, is that you're not fully on board and you didn't articulate that. You're not in full connection and full agreement with a person. You're in fractional agreement, even though it's majority fraction, it's still fractional. So it's not in full, it's in part. Now, let's say that this thing is actually something kind of important. Well, initially it may not seem like it because of all of the things that are associated with this moment or that moment that you come to that agreement, even though it wasn't directly spoken as a total agreement, again, to stress that. But you have the experience that you've had with this person that leads you to believe that they're going to be able to satiate in a particular thing in your life, or to be able to bring support to a thing in your life, something that made you, that kind of coerced you into, and this is not them coercing you directly, this is you seeing specific things about them that have you say this person is suitable to be involved in my life in this way. So you take the time to become, to allow for that. So now, when you do allow for that particular space to be taken or occupied, that's not in full agreement, what does that do to you? Let's say your stress values go up, which is, we have all of these oscillating values that we go through in our life, specifically associated with stress. Your stress isn't negative as a whole. It's just an abundance, and specific abundance becomes a challenge. And what it really is indicating is things for you to work on, for you to put your effort into, so that you can overcome it. Sometimes that is such a massive undertaking that it's just going to take you quite a bit of time to do it. But it doesn't mean don't do it. It just means be patient with your effort, so you don't defeat yourself and sit down and don't do it again. You want to be able to stay consistent. So you use that stress as a director so that you understand where you need to put your effort. Now, let's say you did make that agreement with somebody and it's creating stress in your life. How many different relationships do you need to have, 10 to 20 or greater percentage of disagreement before it starts to wear you down? No, it's not how you're going to do one relationship. It's how you're going to do all of your relationships. Your friendships, your business colleagues and associates, acquaintances. There's a lot of different people that you have this particular pattern of relationships. That's how you formulate. It's not about being highly disagreeable for the sake of a disagreement. That's a contrarian. This is to truly speak your mind. Here's the great thing about it. There's definitely going to be the times whenever you feel that you're in a disagreement to some degree with this person, whomever this person may be or whoever the people may be. If you speak to that disagreement, there's a pretty good chance that you're going to flesh out what the disagreement truly is and whether or not that is a problem for you in your life and or for the other person. It may not be a disagreement at all. It was the way that it was articulated was not fully understood because of the choice of language. What words did you choose? So with that, that's you can definitely create clarity just by speaking out. Also, if you don't let the other person know where you are and the total of that agreement, then you have the potential of you minimize your skill sets. You become dependent in some way to what they want, even if that dependency doesn't show up as a standardized concept of dependency. But you do have a relationship with that person that they're going to navigate that area that you have a disagreement in. It accumulates over time and it wears you down. No, because it just gets to the point and it will hijack you because you don't have the autonomy to truly stand in the space of, I disagree here. Now you're actually at the cause of other people. You're the subject of life's happening. And this is where you can start collecting the concepts for victimhood. Well, this person did this. This person did that. Now, some people utilize, and they take advantage of victimhood in such a way that they are creating more opportunities for themselves. Their intention is to collect a emotional deposit. Their intention is to emotionally embezzle you. So if they're intentionally doing it, to be a victim. And it's not always that they're just like some sort of villain as much as they want that embezzlement to validate themselves. So you can find these relationships. They're all over the place, by the way. Our society is actually geared towards supporting and cultivating that type of mentality. You can see it on billboards with attorneys all over the place. If you've been wronged, see if we can get you some money. By the way, we're going to take 30%. Whatever. It's a for-profit business now to install victimhood. Well, it doesn't just affect on the illegal side. It affects us on every single aspect of our life. if you want the antidote to that, you have to start being responsible. And that responsibility, when I say radical responsibility, I'm looking for the fractional part where it's like 1% disagreement in anything that I'm involved in, and to address it at that level. Now that is a very challenging situation to be at that, but because it's, you have, like, for me, my entire life has been, conditioned to get along with people. And there's nothing wrong with getting along with people, but don't do it at the sake of yourself, to give away yourself. Every time you give away something that you don't fully agree with, you're put into specific patterns of opportunity, because you have the punishment that comes with disagreement. And who wants being punished? Nobody really looks for that unless you're, a masochist. Then maybe you do want to be punished. But that's something to keep in mind as you go through this process of becoming self, that becoming whole with who you truly are. That's what my intent is to do. My intent to do is to help others become completely true to themselves. But it does take a lot of effort. Now, I am not a therapist. I am not a doctor. I am not any of those things, so I don't speak into those authorities or as a type of authority. It's not my business. My business is perspectives and to share mine, to see what I can do to help free people up. I have areas of interest of my own, and I put a lot of effort into becoming completely autonomous, completely independent of others for myself, but yet understanding how I play a role with others. I'm not using that position of independence to, recklessly, push other people away or anything like that. We're more hierarchical. We need to put effort into becoming, partners in this life with others to accomplish our goals, because we work together for these things. But that's what kind of the human species is, a hierarchical, communal type of species. So now, when you accept something that you don't truly agree with, in psychology, and again, I'm not speaking as an authority, I studied it though, and I still do, the baseline, or the first level, if you were to qualify like levels of conditions, is general anxiety disorder. Is if you're consistently anxious about one particular thing for 6 months or more, you could be diagnosed as having general anxiety disorder, which they consider that the entry into mental health issues. Again, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I found it very interesting that you can choose to put the work in to offset the that particular anxiety driver, but you do have to work on it. And anxiety can come by way of giving up too many of your own decisions by part with another person, whether you make these agreements. So, like I like to say, even the rock gives way to the river over time, because the river will shape a rock. It just depends on how long it takes to shape it. And that's the amount of flow and the time that it takes is really the key factors of it. I'm sure temperature plays a role as well, but for the most part, it's just the surrendering of the minerals of the rock will change the shape because of the consistency of water flowing over it. That's the same thing whenever you make a decision or you come to an agreement with somebody that you're not 100% involved in, or a high percentage where you feel like you actually have a lot of say-so in it. Is in actually having the autonomy of yourself to have say-so in it. What happens is you start to view the world through that agreement in a way that you're not to upset that agreement. Well, when you spend a lot of time in a thinking pattern, it becomes familiar to you, and then the longer you're there, the more likely it is to become a default in the way that you think. This is done by way of what they call neuroplasticity. And that's the way the brain fires in specific ways, so the synapse can rewire for familiarity, energy conservation, things like that. We have reasons for our body having that type of tactic of survival, if you will, and in behavior. So a great deal of us in our existence is energy preservation. It's fascinating what we actually do for efficiency and how these things come up. Neuroplasticity is one of those things because it creates heuristics. And that's downloadable information that's quick to understand without needing to spend all this time discussing it. All right. So we can rewire this stuff, by the way. You don't need to be stuck to it. You can create something different. But you have to be aware that you do have the ability. And what I'm wanting to do with this particular episode and what my intentions are is to give you an idea about where the thread is to start pulling so you can unravel it. Because there is a lot of who we are as a person that is unaware of why we are where we are. So, as I like to tell people, whenever you're thinking about something specific, you can't think about other things. So if you're in a frame of reference of having challenges and that challenge stimulates a specific emotional reaction, it's hard to get out of that emotional reaction because it comes with a particular suit of emotional experiences, the hormones and things that go with that. So if you're sad, it's hard to be happy. You have to push yourself into a frame of thinking that stimulates happiness. So if you think is the simplicity of it, if I have you think about cow, just the animal, think about cow. What else can you think about at that second that you're envisioning cow? You can't think about anything else. Now you can have congruent thoughts that are associated with cow, perhaps steak or milk, or this animal that moves and has a specific smell to it or whatever, but your category is cow, and that's where you put your effort in thinking. That's actually not even necessarily a full effort of decision of thinking. You've accepted that thought, and now you can't think outside of it for the time being. So you have to come up with the newer perspective of, I'm sorry, not necessarily the newer perspective, but you shift into another before you can actually get away from it. You have to change your reference of thinking. So I'm telling you that because what happens when you don't have that degree of clarity, that you are stuck on those rails, that thinking process, you could feel like your life is happening to you. And most people want, and you see it all the time, like with the feel-good stuff, the post about positive empowerment, things like that, individuals that really want to be able to take control of their life and to cultivate their own life and to have that independence of self and the satisfaction of surviving and living in this life. That's what a lot of people are pursuing. You look to the lowest common denominator is what I'm after typically when I'm looking at social media, things like that. All right. So when you want to have that kind of freedom, let's look for it. Let's actually learn how to get there. And that's what I really want to do. That's what I'm at. That's my effort in this, is to get us there. So with that being said, let's put effort into freeing ourselves up, get out of the muck of it. So now with that, make agreements that work for you. Speak your mind. You're not going to create the greatest degree of chaos of non-agreement. No, you're going to you'll be somebody that stands for themselves. The greatest compliment I've ever received, and I've been told a lot of things in my life that would be complimentary. The greatest compliment I ever received was from a good friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, Dr. Frank Sessa, a chiropractor friend of mine. This gentleman told me one day, Chad, you truly are your own man. That is one of the greatest compliments I have ever received. Because we live in a world that really is pushing people to conformity, but yet is doing it by the way of stating that everyone has this unique value and that you're unique. But if you truly show that you're unique, that does not fall into the agenda that particular statement is associated with, you get pushed back and attacked because you are not in that frame of thinking. If you truly do value somebody being unique, you will look for people that have differences in opinions and views and not try to solely focus on or to cultivate people around you to be your thinkers. Think like you. What that does, whenever you have people think like you, it feels better, but it leads to the opportunity of what's referred to as an echo chamber. And an echo chamber is where you don't have the freedom to think about anything outside of whatever that bubble is considering to be true. And if you do speak out of that echo chamber, or if you speak out against whatever conversation or communication is going on inside of that echo chamber, you are going to be ostracized. You'll be attacked. It's not, they refer to it as far as universities, places like that, this modern movement of nonsense and brainwashing, mind control. They're looking at this as a safe space, and you're violating a safe space, which means that you're now, whatever ism that they want to associate with you to defame you and reduce your value as a human being, because it's a weaponized perspective. Now, people are adopting that without necessarily fully being in the agenda of what's going on when it comes to that political, and it's actually, to me, it's associated with communism and its attempt to take over this, our country being capitalism. And it's gotten insidiously deep into the country, but we're adopting that particular frame of thinking without necessarily the communist agenda. I'm not trying to get into politics of this. I'm looking at it from the perspectives of psychology and or the human experience. We're getting to that where we're adopting patterns of thinking without having the agenda associated with it, which means that people are looking to become more and more of a victim, because that gives them some sort of social status and some sort of authority over other people, because once they cry that they're a victim, then they can say that somebody has been the perpetrator of that, which therefore is a villain, and they need help because of that. And it signals that they need support, whatever that support might be, money or attention or a mobilization of opposition against that person, whatever it might be. So you lose satisfaction in life when you conform to other people's views. So you will lose satisfaction. Now, you may gain satisfaction in specific areas like social acceptance. You may feel initially like it feels better and you're good, but over time, when you really start to feel like you want to think outside of that, you'll be punished back into it. Or you lose the thing you created a great deal of value in, which is that social acceptance. And you don't want to do that. Who wants to accept that they're dying in groups? It's like a psychological aspect of dying, not the physical necessarily. But you're losing that status and favor, and you're shrinking as a person because the other people won't want to accept you. There's behaviors and mechanics that get us to that point. It's not just okay, you think that way. It's a pattern of thinking that gets you there. So we all want to be accepted. Who doesn't want to be accepted, right? No one wants to be an outcast and have to do everything necessary to survive and to feel alone in it, because solitude is one of the greatest forms of punishment if it's given to you versus you accepting it or you seeking it. Like monks go off and they go into solitude for meditation and for self-discovery. But when you've behaved poorly or behaved badly, you're removed from society. One of them can condition into a mental illness, which is often what happens with people incarcerated because they're forced into isolation. It's a significant punishment because of what it can do to the mind. Because we are so dependent on having other people involved in our life, so that we're not left to our own mechanisms. Right, so we can contribute, and that's a huge benefit of us as a species. We want to contribute to others. Otherwise, isolation would be a punishment. So we want to have that contribution, and we want to have others contribute to us. So it's a pattern of behavior that gets us to this point, which is, okay, well, if this person disagrees with me, then my mechanism is to remove attention, remove affection, remove something from them, as a way of conditioning them into, accepting my perspective. It's a really odd negotiation tactic, but it's common, unfortunately. If you want to be set free of this stuff, you do have to start taking action. If you want the antidote to that chaos that comes from this, you just have to start fully sharing who you are. If you tell a lie today, it will catch up to you. Now, how it catches up to you is the problem. Most people don't consider how it actually comes back around. It may never manifest in somebody else's world that you have been dishonest and that you've lied to them. It may never manifest to them in a direct way that they can tell you lied. But your loss of autonomy and your thinking process, you have sacrificed something. And if you use a lie today to gain affection from another, That affection is built off of a false belief about you that now is a debt you have to pay or you lose that. Now, it could be fractional. I don't mind continuing this lie. It's pretty easy, that mindset of it, right? I don't mind it at all. It's not that taxing. Well, it actually narrows down your behavior because you can't just act however you feel like it. You have to act with the awareness that it might expose your lie, which means now you have to guard something that isn't true, and now it makes more work for you, which will reduce your total energy and your computing processes, your ability. CPUs, like computing processing unit, in computers is a really good way of explaining the way that the brain works. When we're considering specific topics, you can't think outside of that, and then you can only process so much information that's new versus old in the thinking of things. So, it's taxing to think about new things. It does cost a lot of energy to do it. Drawing new connections, there is a reward for it. It does feel pretty good for a lot of us, but it depends on how much you can take on. You're either drinking from a garden hose or a fire hose, depending on how new some of these things are for you. And you have to learn how to pace yourself so it doesn't hurt you in a way that prevents you from coming back to it, or causing you to divert who you be so that you can accommodate for somebody else in a way that actually takes away who you are. If it's a great exercise, it's something that was proposed to me, oh God, years and years ago. And that was, imagine that you're in a room full of everybody you've ever known in your life. How would you behave? Some people would know you to be funny, some serious, some for you to be charming and or sexually appealing or whatever it is, and others for you to be this bad person, whatever. Accumulation of everybody, and how would you be? And who would get to know a different side of you because you're being different? I'm like, when that lesson came to play, I'm like, oh my God. I had been a chameleon prior to that just because I wanted acceptance. I'd change behaviors so that I had people accept me. Like, that is completely disempowering versus being who I truly am. And it takes effort to be that person. It's easier on the front end to lie. It's a whole lot harder on the back end to lie. You lose a lot. Tell the truth. So when you have agreements with people, or you step into an agreement, if it's 10%, speak it. I agree with you mostly, but this is what my reservation is, or this is where I see a difference. You don't need to turn it into something combative. Just turn it into what's truly expressive. You don't need everybody to like you. Be you, and people will like you. Don't tempt them or condition them into liking you because you've given up something about yourself in order for them to find value in you. Be who you truly are to show your value. This is an active exercise. This is not you make up your mind today and it's there. This is you make up your mind today and you practice it. And you run into the discomfort of what you've already created based on your own self and how you think to appease, how you think to connect. And you have to deal with the pattern of behavior you're so familiar with, the voice tracks that you're used to using, the specific verbiage and your vocabulary and your speech patterns. You have to look at all of those things, and you'll notice that it's uncomfortable to truly stand in who you are, because you've got to break habits and patterns. Associate the real habits and patterns to who you actually are, and you're going to feel a whole lot better. It's all about creating that fulfilled life. That's my preference. I want the fulfilled life, and I want to be able to help other people see that as well. Cannot tell you how to do it as a direct, this is exactly what you do and how you do it. But I can tell you how I'm doing it and how I see things that could help potentially shift viewpoints and maybe get you closer to that. No, wouldn't maybe. You'll figure it out. You'll do it yourself. But it's good to have the tools necessary to get there. So, all right. That's it for today. Don't lie. Don't accept things that aren't actually right there. And if you do, speak your mind enough that you don't enroll people into something that actually could be perceived as being, false, a lie, or any of the above. So, all right. Until next time, I am your host, Chad Everett Broshears, or Sir Chad Everett Broshears, if you know. This is the Maturity Project, coming to you in the darkness of my mobile studio. And we've got a world to address, but we really got to work on ourselves first. So join me in that. Share this video with somebody you want to break the ice with. Comment in the comment section. Let me hear what you're getting out of it. And don't forget to like the video, help me with the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel to get the up-to-dates. Just like everybody else, subscribe. Let's do it. And look for future opportunities for growth and opportunities to join in on this education, the Maturity Project. I will be putting things together for that. So, all right, let's get to it, okay? All right, always be growing, geared to grow. All right, till next time. Let's get out there and practice life, shall we? See ya.